A Romanian mother locks her 7-year-old daughter in the cellar every night for 3 months. The child screams, begs, promises to be good, but the mother never relents. Neighbors call her cruel, heartless, a monster. But they don't know what the mother knows. They don't know that her own mother, the child's beloved grandmother, clawed her way out of her grave 2 weeks after the funeral. They don't know that grandmothers who become Strigoi always come for their grandchildren first. They don't know that the scratching sounds at the cellar door every midnight aren't rats or wind, but fingernails grown sharp and long, scraping against wood with the patience of something that has all eternity to wait. And they definitely don't know that when the child finally stops crying in the cellar each night, it's not because she's fallen asleep. It's because she started listening to the voice on the other side of the door, calling her name in grandmother's gentle voice, promising to take away all her pain forever. Comment below if you've ever felt like someone was watching you from inside your house. Because what you're about to learn about Romania's Strigoi will make you understand that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who know exactly where you sleep. Deep in Romania's Carpathian Mountains, where mist clings to ancient peaks like the breath of sleeping giants, vampire stories aren't entertainment. They're survival instructions passed down through 40 generations of families who learned the hard way that some people don't stay buried. The word Strigoi comes from the Latin strix, meaning screech owl, but it carries a weight that no translation can capture. In Romanian folklore, there are 2 types: the living Strigoi, people born with supernatural abilities who can leave their bodies at night, and the dead Strigoi, corpses animated by trapped souls who return to drain the life force from their living relatives. But the Strigoi tradition is far older than Christianity in Romania. The ancient Dacians, the fierce warriors who fought the Roman Empire to a standstill, believed that certain souls were too strong, too angry, or too attached to life to accept death's boundaries. When Christianity arrived in the region around the 4th century, these pagan beliefs didn't disappear. They merged with Christian concepts of sin, damnation, and resurrection, creating something far more complex and terrifying than simple folklore. During the medieval period, as the Ottoman Empire pressed against Romania's borders and plague swept through isolated mountain villages, Strigoi beliefs became embedded in the survival strategies of communities that lived in constant fear of death from disease, war, and starvation. The dead weren't just mourned, they were monitored. Because in Romanian culture, dying was only the first step in a process that could go catastrophically wrong. The creation of a Strigoi isn't random. Romanian folklore identifies specific markers that doom certain individuals from birth. Children born with a caul, the membrane that sometimes covers a newborn's face, are marked by fate. The 7th child of a 7th child carries the curse in their bloodline. Those born with teeth already visible, or with red hair and blue eyes, or on certain cursed days like Christmas or Easter, are destined to become something other than human after death. But birth isn't the only path to becoming a Strigoi. How you live determines how you die, and how you die determines what you become afterward. Suicides, murder victims, those who die unbaptized, and people who break sacred oaths. All of these souls are too damaged or too angry to rest peacefully. They cling to the physical world with a desperation that transforms love into possession, grief into hunger, and memory into an endless cycle of supernatural revenge. Let me tell you about Ana Popescu from the village of Viscri in Transylvania. In 1823, this elderly woman died during a particularly harsh winter, leaving behind 6 children and 18 grandchildren. Ana had been the family matriarch, the one who settled disputes, arranged marriages, and held the extended family together through sheer force of will. 3 weeks after her funeral, strange things began happening in the family homes. Children would wake up claiming that Bunica Anna had visited them in the night, sitting on their beds, stroking their hair, singing the same lullabies she'd sung when they were smaller. At first, the parents dismissed these as grief-induced dreams. But then the children began reporting identical details. The smell of Anna's lavender soap, the specific songs she sang, conversations about family secrets that the children couldn't have known. The visits escalated. Anna began appearing to her adult children, always with the same message. The family was falling apart without her. They needed to be together. They should come join her where it was peaceful and warm, and there was no more struggle or pain. She appeared to her son Iowan when he was considering moving his family to Bucharest for work, convincing him that abandoning the family land would doom future generations. She visited her daughter Maria during a difficult pregnancy, offering to take away her pain forever. But Anna's help came with a price. Ioan's youngest daughter began wasting away, growing thinner each day despite eating normally. Maria's pregnancy ended in stillbirth. Other grandchildren started showing signs of anemia, exhaustion, and a strange detachment from the living world, as if part of them was already elsewhere. The family realized that Anna's love had become something monstrous. Her desperate need to keep her family together had transformed into a supernatural compulsion to collect them, one by one, until they could all be reunited in death. She wasn't visiting them out of affection. She was harvesting them, slowly draining their life force to sustain her own existence in the space between life and death. The destruction of a Strigoi requires both precise ritual knowledge and terrible moral courage. Because you're not just destroying a monster, you're destroying someone you loved. Romanian tradition prescribes specific methods for dealing with Strigoi, and they're not for the squeamish. The grave must be opened exactly at noon, when the sun's power is strongest and shadows are shortest. The corpse must be examined for signs of supernatural preservation, flesh that hasn't decayed, hair and nails that have continued growing, blood around the mouth, a body that hasn't stiffened with rigor mortis. When Anna's family opened her coffin on a snow-covered January day in 1824, they found exactly what they feared. Anna's body perfectly preserved, her hair grown longer, her fingernails extended into claws, her lips stained red with fresh blood. But the most horrifying detail was her eyes. They were open, aware, and filled with a terrible intelligence that recognized each family member who had come to destroy her. As the wooden stake pierced her heart, Anna's corpse sat up and spoke, using the same gentle voice that had comforted sick children and settled family arguments for 70 years. She didn't scream or curse or threaten. She simply said, "I only wanted us to be together. I only wanted to keep my family safe." Even as her body crumbled to ash, her voice carried the genuine love and bewilderment of a grandmother who couldn't understand why her family was destroying her for trying to protect them. This is what makes the Strigoi so much more terrifying than other vampire myths. They retain their human emotions, memories, and relationships. But these normal feelings become twisted by death into something predatory and consuming. They're not evil in the way we understand evil. They're love that has become toxic, protection that has become possession, memory that has become obsession. The psychological impact of Strigoi beliefs on Romanian communities can't be overstated. These weren't just scary stories told around fires. They were frameworks for understanding grief, guilt, and the complex emotions that surround death in close-knit families. When someone died, especially someone with a strong personality or complicated relationships, The community had to collectively decide whether that person posed a supernatural threat to the living. This process served multiple social functions. It provided a way to express and process conflicted feelings about the deceased. You could love someone and still recognize that their influence might be harmful. It created community solidarity around shared protective rituals, and it established clear boundaries between the world of the living and the world of the dead, ensuring that grief didn't become pathological obsession. In the modern era, Strigoi folklore has evolved and adapted while maintaining its essential psychological insights. Romanian communities that emigrated to other countries carried these beliefs with them, often adapting them to new environments and circumstances. Psychiatric researchers have found that Strigoi beliefs persist in Romanian communities, partly because they provide a culturally specific framework for understanding and treating certain psychological conditions. What Western psychology might diagnose as complicated grief, depression with psychotic features, or dissociative disorders. Traditional Romanian culture interprets through the lens of supernatural influence and treats with community-based rituals that often prove remarkably effective. Modern Romanian Orthodox Christianity has a complex relationship with Strigoi beliefs. Officially, the Church condemns these practices as pagan superstition. But at the local level, many priests acknowledge that Strigoi folklore addresses spiritual and psychological needs that formal religious doctrine doesn't fully meet. The persistence of Strigoi beliefs in the 21st century also reflects ongoing social tensions in Romania itself. As the country has modernized and urbanized, traditional family structures have come under pressure. Young people migrate to cities or emigrate to other countries, leaving behind elderly relatives who feel abandoned and betrayed. When we compare the Strigoi to vampire myths from other cultures, fascinating patterns emerge that reveal universal human anxieties about death, family, and the persistence of relationships beyond the grave. The Chinese Jiangshi, or hopping vampire, shares with the Strigoi the characteristic of retaining family memories and emotional connections after death. Both traditions emphasize that the most dangerous undead are those who refuse to accept the severing of family bonds. The Slavic concept of the upir, which shares linguistic roots with the English word vampire, describes creatures very similar to Strigoi, deceased family members who return to drain the life force from their living relatives. What sets the Strigoi apart from most other vampire traditions is their explicit focus on family relationships and the dark side of love. While many cultures have stories about the dead returning to harm the living, few vampire myths are as specific about the mechanisms of emotional manipulation and the ways that family loyalty can become a form of supernatural bondage. If you're fascinated by authentic folklore that reveals universal truths about human nature, you need to subscribe to this channel right now. We're diving deep into the real stories behind the myths that shaped our deepest fears. Hit that notification bell because next week, we're exploring the aswang of the Philippines, shape-shifting creatures that infiltrate families by taking the form of trusted relatives. You won't want to miss that investigation into how folklore reflects our anxieties about trust and betrayal in intimate relationships. But I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced something that felt like supernatural influence from a deceased family member? Have you felt the presence of someone who's passed away so strongly that it seemed like more than just memory? Share your experiences in the comments, because understanding how these stories continue to resonate in our modern lives is part of understanding why they've survived for centuries. The Strigoi teach us that the most terrifying monsters aren't alien creatures from other worlds. They're the people we love most, transformed by death into something that can't let go. They remind us that love without boundaries becomes possession, memory without acceptance becomes obsession, and family loyalty without limits becomes a form of spiritual imprisonment. As you go to sleep tonight, Remember that in Romanian tradition, the most dangerous time is just before dawn, when the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead grows thin. Listen carefully to the sounds your house makes in the darkness. Pay attention to dreams that feel too real, too detailed, too filled with voices you recognize. Because according to the wisdom of the Carpathian Mountains, the dead don't always stay dead, and family love doesn't always end with the grave. Sweet dreams.